If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the question section on the control panel. This event is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you following this event email tomorrow. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, we will be answering those towards the end. Thank you. And I'd like to hand it over to Robert.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Well, welcome. I'm excited because I have 3 of the smartest people in the room virtually. Welcome to our conversation here. My name is Robert. I'll be your host, and I'm joined by Ted Jones, Global Ecosystem Cloud Native Solution Architect here at SUSE, Martin Fahn, Field CTO for Cloud Casa, and an old friend of mine who we go back a few years now, Colin Griffin, founder, CTO of Crumware. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Robert.
All right, and you know what? Let's dive right in. All right, Ted, my first question to you is, the agenda for this webinar highlights SUSE Rancher Prime as a strategic command center. Can you elaborate what this means in practice and what specific features give platform engineers the ability to manage VMs alongside Kubernetes on a single pane of glass?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is something we hear a lot from our customers running SUSE Rancher Prime. They see it as their strategic command center because it helps them manage their entire organization's diverse Kubernetes footprint, hybrid cloud, multi-cluster, edge environments, on-prem, all from a single and unified platform. So it has all the key strategic features that you would expect from a command center. Unified management to manage all of your clusters, whether it's RKE2, K3S, or in the cloud with AKS, EKS, or GKE. And then it centralizes security, which is important so that you can enforce a consistent security policy across your organization, including authentication, RBAC, across all clusters. And there's enterprise governance as well as compliance standards for certain verticals. And then with SUSE observability, you get this single pane of glass for monitoring, auditing, and gaining strategic insights into performance across your whole cloud native landscape. And then SUSE virtualization, you mentioned VMs alongside containers. With SUSE virtualization, it allows you to run and manage your VM workloads along with your container applications, so we can take advantage of things like CI/CD, security, logging, and auditing, as well as evaluate which VMs are candidates to maybe move to containers as part of your ongoing modernization strategy. And SUSE virtualization is also an HCI, so it includes SUSE storage, which along with Cloud Casa enables high availability and disaster recovery of your VM workloads. And it really simplifies all of your operations as well, cluster provisioning, upgrades, version management. It allows platform engineering teams to focus on your operational efficiency and scaling your cloud native adoption. And we also have a really powerful ecosystem hub embedded, so you can pull from essential cloud native tools from our partner catalog, which has a comprehensive customized strategy without that vendor lock-in. So in short, it's really the control point that allows leadership to manage risk, ensure security, and accelerate application delivery across any infrastructure.
That sounds amazing. And with that, you mentioned containers along with Kubernetes, with VMs, that SUSE virtualization does, offer the ability to, run VMs and containers side by side if, in that process of modernization, correct?
That's right. So yeah, and that is powerful to have a single view of your virtual machines and your containers and be able to leverage a lot of the automation that you already have in place for your containers for your virtual machines as well.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned Cloud Casa. Cloud Casa is an integrated as SUSE Rancher Prime extension. From developers to operators perspective, how does this native technology simplify the day-to-day task of Kubernetes data protection compared to standalone backup solutions? So Martin, I want to direct that question to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a Cloud Casa SUSE Rancher Prime extension, right? This is downloadable through the marketplace, as Ted had mentioned. So it's just a great example of how SUSE, Crumware, and Cloud Casa, we're all able to come together to provide this seamless viewpoint into container and VM workloads that are being managed by SUSE Rancher. We actually have a YouTube video of it on our channel on YouTube at Cloud Casa. So if you're feeling bored or maybe a little interested, go ahead and check out that YouTube video. It's a great
after the show. After the show.
After the show, right? Exactly. But it provides a great overview of how you can, through the SUSE Rancher interface, log in, download the extension from the marketplace, and deploy it to your Rancher Prime user interface. Because listen, when you're an administrator, you don't want to be jumping around between different screens looking to create or install and register agents. You can do this all through the Rancher Prime extension, the Cloud Casa Rancher Prime extension. So it keeps things that much more tightly integrated in making direct calls to our REST API to the Cloud Casa server, and can provide that unified control plane for you.
So users really don't have to leave SUSE Rancher Prime. They have that extension. It's fully operational for them. So their user experience is not necessarily, disjointed where I got to log in here, come over here. It is, all in one platform for them, correct?
Exactly. Manage your containers, manage your VMs, manage your backups of those VMs, all in one single control plane.
And no one, cares about backups until they actually need them. And that's one of the things that I'd love about our partnership with Cloud Casa is that, it's important, and we don't necessarily talk about it as much as we probably should. And people don't really think about it until they really need that disaster recovery, right?
Exactly right. Yep.
All right. Well, my next question is for Colin. Colin, as an integrator, you're on the front lines of implementation. What are some of the biggest operational hurdles you've seen the SUSE Rancher Prime and Cloud Casa joint solution overcome for customers, particularly in how they manage workloads across highly distributed environments like the edge?
Yeah, from my background, my background comes from the application development side originally, and the big challenge that I had to overcome throughout my career was being able to find and figure out the tools that let me have some semblance of control of the infrastructure or the environment around the application, so that the applications that we develop can be more successful. Kind of grew over time into what we call platform engineering today. But what platform engineering for us really boils down to is the ability to provide the right tools and functionality and services to people like me, like the developers or the ops teams, right? Or the DevOps teams or the backup team or the data team, right? There's all these different players that we have in the ecosystem. And the biggest operational challenge for Kubernetes as a whole is, maybe the political aspect initially of why should I use Kubernetes? What does this, why should I invest in it? What abilities does it actually give me other than being a new challenging technology I need to learn? I think as people go through that, they find the value in Rancher and Rancher Prime and being able to grow into that ecosystem. But the biggest thing for us with Rancher was, as an application developer, it gave us a way to provide infrastructure teams with a tool that they could give back to us so we could actually do our jobs. And the operational challenge specific to backup is really still a big deal. It's a big issue. Teams have arguments all the time over, should we back up the machine? Should we back up the cluster? Should the backups go on, our AWS and our S3, or like, where should everything go? And application development kind of gets left out of the picture, or these other users get left out of the picture, or they have to take over responsibility of their own solution. What we found when we were working with Cloud Casa is there was a lot of strength and value in the simplicity of the solution. It's really easy to set up and configure backup. Even so, from the application side, we could jump in and back up our own environment. So if we own the cluster, we could back that up. But when we get into scale in larger organizations, we can't be responsible for backup. We're not responsible for the infrastructure. And through the extensions feature on Rancher, we leverage and build extensions to provide portals and interfaces for people to get access to services like this. So now we're able to provide backup as a service to non-backup teams via the extension so that they can manage their own environments and their own workloads. But we don't need to know where it is. A backup team or an infrastructure team can use the full features of Cloud Casa to figure out the rest of that. So for us, it's really about providing effective backup capabilities to the right users in their way and breaking down that either political or maybe operational silo, those walls to get things going. So now we're able to provide our teams with an in-cluster, at-cluster, don't need to know anything about where it is or anything else, a backup solution that they can use and configure how they need to, which has been tremendously valuable.
And I said at the beginning of the call is, Colin and I are old friends here because I have a developer background before, and this is a game changer for developers because this was kind of isolated from us in that workflow. And now that we're able to see it, we have a deeper understanding of what it is and the control and power to roll back environments, especially in development where, we make mistakes. Giving developers that power and that autonomy really does show a deeper value to the platform because it goes beyond just those operators. It comes down to us developers, right?
Absolutely. It lets us feel more secure and safe. And if we need to, we can work independently because if we need to do a rollout, we don't need to call another team to trigger a backup, to wait on things to complete. We have a little bit more autonomy and we can back something up or restore it before anybody else really notices. And another thing we can do too is we can do promotion, right? We can migrate things from a development environment into a staging or production environment. And that's kind of an unsung hero for us.
All right. Ted, I have a question for you. SUSE customers are moving to RK2. Can you explain why this migration is so critical for enterprises and what unique advantages does SUSE Rancher Prime offer to ensure a seamless transition from RKE1 to RKE2 and minimizing that downtime and risk?
That's an important question and really kind of showcases the partnership between SUSE, Cloud Casa, and Cromware. But let me start with a quick background about RKE1 and the evolution of that solution into RKE2. So RKE1 was built sort of early on in the evolution of containers and Kubernetes. And it was a solid offering using Docker as a runtime, but it required a lot of manual configuration for security. And then that dependency on Docker created a lot of complexity and configuration requirements. So RKE2 was created out of the growth of the Kubernetes ecosystem and in conjunction with SUSE Rancher government solutions, which ensure this hardened compliant solution based on container D as the runtime. And that removed the Docker dependency and those sub-dependencies and eliminated that need for the manual hardening of the environment. So SUSE Rancher Prime still serves as the command center for the migration of RKE1 workloads to RKE2, but partners like Cloud Casa have certified and integrated with the Rancher UI, and that enables customers to migrate things like etcd and application data in a very private and secure manner. And Cromware is really critical from an SI perspective. They're experts not only with the SUSE Cloud Native stack, but they're experts on Cloud Casa as well, and they can help make this transition seamless.
Awesome. All right. So my next question is there for Martin. Martin, when we talk about application mobility and hybrid cloud disaster recovery, it's about more than just data. How does Cloud Casa ensure that all necessary components of a Kubernetes application, like configs, secrets, persistent volumes, are backed up and restored consistently across environments?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question as well, and kind of segues nicely from Ted's question. We actually got a lot of customers and people trialing our Cloud Casa SaaS platform by doing that RK1 to RK2 migration. They had discovered that there was a challenge, a larger lift than they had expected than just restoring or applying some configuration files. And one of the primary reasons why Cloud Casa came to be is having customers having these stateful workloads. So you already have these resource or configuration YAML files. That's pretty simple to restore. Let's say you have you store them on a file system, you store images within a container repository, and most users are going to have their own processes for protecting this data, right? But the power of Cloud Casa comes from protecting and backing up the stateful data. That is the persistent volume claims, the persistent data that needs to exist when you back up a critical application such as a database. This is going to become definitely apparent, especially when users start migrating their workloads, not just containerized workloads, but also their VMs to SUSE virtualization or SUSE Harvester. So they're going to be able to take advantage of that containerized VM component of the SUSE virtualization framework, and perhaps they're already using that along with SUSE storage like Longhorn, and doing storage-based backup and replication of that storage as well to keep a disaster recovery copy. And if you point that DR copy to Cloud Casa, we can use it to mount up the workload as well. So we're not changing any of your workflows from a recovery perspective if you're already using or taking advantage of the storage capabilities and protecting your application or VM resources.
And I like the fact that it's beyond just the database, right? And because before in the worlds that we used to live in, it was the database. Now that there's so many more components, Cloud Casa giving the ability just for the configuration alone, that's a game changer for any organization because it saves time and it's a feeling of relief knowing that it's all there. And if you're in that situation, because when you need it, you're in a desperate times, that all comes back, and it's a seamless integration with Cloud Casa.
Absolutely, and I think just to throw it back on the application and even the virtualization side of the house, right? A lot of people have received virtualization or hypervisor renewals that they're probably not too happy with, and they're probably looking for alternatives in the market that can modernize their IT infrastructure. And as Colin was saying, we're seeing a move towards that containerization through Kubernetes, containerization of VMs, and treating everything as this containerized workload that is portable and can be moved between different places and locations.
Understood. All right. Thank you, Martin. Next question, since we're talking application, question for Colin. Can you walk us through a specific case where a customer needed to implement a robust hybrid cloud DR strategy? What was the before and after, and how did your team leverage the joint solution to help simplify the process and achieve more resilient, cost-effective outcome?
Yeah, one of the cases is related to edge and manufacturing for us, but maybe not in a typical format that people might expect. When we talk about edge and manufacturing, people think that that's the way the environment needs to be architected from the ground up, or it's just strictly an on-prem deployment or something there. We were working with a boat manufacturer who had called us originally to see if we could develop a hybrid cloud platform or something that could run without internet connectivity was the big thing. They have redundant ISPs already, which you would think would be more than enough, but they'd lose more than a full day of operations when a portal solution they had developed was only accessible through the internet. No matter how effective, even with redundant connections, they were still losing millions of dollars just because they couldn't have connectivity. Well, the challenge for us was not necessarily being able to deploy devices and things on premise. With the SUSE stack, that was easy for us, right? We use Elemental in the edge stack, and we provision devices and ship those out to the customer. Customer puts them online, and that connects to a central management plane. But that central management plane, if it's unavailable, the cluster that's on premise still functions, right? It still runs perfectly. But for us, we didn't want to make this a big hardware acquisition play. We only really wanted to deploy a few devices on premise, but we needed parity in our development environments, in the staging and UAT environments, and backup was so crucial. We needed a way to be able to roll back or migrate, or again, that extra case of promoting solutions is something that we've done. So we have like a pre-prod and then deploy into prod, but we needed something that was isolated enough from that wasn't corely dependent on the infrastructure itself, because we truly were in hybrid. We had developer devices, and we have cloud hosted like EKS clusters for Stage and UHC, but then we have this on-prem environment. We were able to implement Cloud Casa and use that and not have to use different backup tools in different places, or configure different buckets, or configure ingress gateways, or direct connect to get secure connectivity there. All of our clusters just back up independently, including the developer machines, because we deploy Cloud Casa just through Fleet, leveraging Fleet and our standard CI/CD. So all these planes get those tools. But it let us have a repeatable process for backup, because we are not their internet service provider. We are not their managed services provider. If we had to be dependent on a backup solution provided by those groups, we wouldn't have been able to work effectively. So this gave us the independence, and we're able to increase resiliency for that customer, and we're able to achieve effective zero downtime because of that. Even if somebody makes a mistake and finds an edge case in the software and we need to roll back a database, right? Because everything's running there in cluster and it's backed up all the time with Cloud Casa, we're golden. So that's been a great hybrid cloud case for us in story to tell.
And it's interesting, one of the things you just mentioned was that limited hardware. And a lot of times customers, they have a solution and you had to make it hybrid, and it's not having that budget to just go out and buy it. We were able to kind of work in with those. It sounded like we were able to work in with those constraints of, limited hardware, but a hybrid solution with Cloud Casa, be able to maintain that data back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just a Kubernetes cluster, right? And this runs on the Kubernetes cluster and then backs up to the hosted solution. We didn't have to carry a lot of extra weight with us. It's actually very lightweight. So when the internet's there and things can back up to Cloud Casa, we know we're going to be able to back up and restore effectively.
Awesome. Well, my next question for Ted. Ted, looking ahead, how does SUSE's product roadmap for SUSE Rancher Prime support this long-term operational resiliency and governance, especially with the increased need for, a strong cyber resilience?
Yeah, so our roadmap has been heavily focused on transitioning from just a cluster management tool with Rancher Manager to a broad, comprehensive enterprise cloud native application platform. And that's going to continue. Gartner and Forrester took notice. We're in the leader quadrants for both. And we plan to be the leader. That's our goal, by continuing to evolve and directly address the increasing need for operational resilience, governance, cyber resilience, and especially in hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Application collection is one area where we're heavily investing in. We build these CNCF certified open source projects, CVE-free, enterprise grade, SBOMs, ensuring a secure supply chain. That's a big focus for us, is solidifying the security of the supply chain. Unified governance for consistent security with RBAC and auditing compliance like CIS and FIPS across all multi-cloud clusters. We're going to continue to lead in this area, maintaining new compliance and regular changes as they happen. Data sovereignty is a great example of that installed in Europe. And cyber resilience with integrated zero trust security with SUSE security, layer 7 network segmentation, preventing breaches. And then we'll continue to invest in our full stack SUSE observability solution, which helps to speed up recovery or mean time to resolution. And we'll continue to build upon and integrate with other common tools within the observability environment to create this single source of truth.
So you mentioned application collection. For those who don't know, application collection is a offering within SUSE Rancher Prime, and Ted kind of touched on it. But one of the value adds that it does is it gives developers the opportunity to use a lot of these projects that are out there in a secure, manner that's not just our build of it, but it's our secure build for it. And so coming from a developer background, one of the things that I like to, when I hear people mention App Collection, is that it gives the developers empowerment to use some of these new tools across the CNCF landscape with ease and with the secured knowledge that it's safe to use. It's not just something I'm pulling from Docker Hub, because friends don't let friends, especially developers, pull anything from Docker Hub or any other untrusted source. All right. So my next question goes back to Martin. Immutable encrypted backups are key for protecting against ransomware and other threats. Can you explain the technology behind Cloudcasta's approach to immutable recovery points and why this is a non-negotiable feature for modern enterprises?
Yeah, so I mean, we're at our core as a backup company. We realize that the threat of ransomware is very real, and it's only a small piece of the equation, right? Recovering data only to discover that that data has been compromised with ransomware, or even worse, the snapshot is completely gone because some rogue actor might have deleted it, would just be infuriating. So we're actually, in terms of comparing us to open source with, let's say, Valera, which is a very popular open source backup application without the user interface. It's all command line based, but they don't have immutability. So we've taken steps as a backup company, having this history of our 25 years plus of developing data protection technologies. We've taken steps to integrate a lot of the lessons that we've learned from creating immutable recovery points, preventing ransomware, such as utilizing object lock to prevent users from deleting or tampering with snapshots at the storage layer. That would be on the Cloud or S3 side. We've also implemented a safe lock feature within our Cloud Casa user interface to prevent other users from deleting or tampering with snapshots as well. But in addition, we have other technologies across our product lines, guard mode as an example, that can actively detect operations that are occurring within, let's say, a file system and report on whether or not that application or the file entry might be too high or too low and could be suffering from a ransomware attack. So this, along with the multi-tenant architecture, which is native to Cloud Casa, users can have their own access permissions to their own cluster resources in order to perform the backups and self-service restores that they would need, and also help you as a user using the backup to ensure the compliance of your recovery points.
And with these recovery points being immutable, there's no way that anyone can tamper for it. So an organization really goes, hey, what I have backed up in Cloud Casa, that's going to be safe, and it's trusted for them. Is this technology, is this just unique to Cloud Casa?
So we're actually leveraging object lock of the object storage destination itself. But there are some components that I mentioned that are unique to our company and to Cloud Casa. So guard mode is a trademarked application as part of our software suite to detect. You can also set up violations, thresholds, and whatnot. But this is just part of our core of being a data protection company, that we realize that, hey, it's not just about backing up data. You need to make sure it's restorable. You need to make sure it's in compliance and free from ransomware.
And this is all available through the SUSE Rancher Prime extension. All of that's there for these users for that unique single pane of glass user experience.
Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. All right. So a question now for Colin. Colin, final point of the agenda is about reducing overhead and not needing a team of backup experts in your experience. How has this partnership with SUSE and Cloud Casa and Crumware made complex Kubernetes data management more accessible and allowed customers' existing teams to be a little more efficient?
I think the skills together are almost reflective of internal experts and teams that maybe many larger organizations might already have in place or have in place, whether they have those skills yet or not. We're able to come in and help a customer on the side of now that I have a Kubernetes environment and I'm a developer, how do I gain that independence? How do I develop for this? How do I take full advantage of the environment? And we're able to lean on Rancher and Suze's expertise and everything on the infrastructure side and the OS layer and everything else to make sure that that environment is put together effectively. And if I don't, if our teams aren't a team of experts, then we just reach out to Cloud Casa and they help us make sure that we're setting up the right policies, that we're understanding what our backup and retention strategies should be. If we need to do something more complex, like do that RKE1 to RKE2 migration and get some help for doing that migration, then we're all able to kind of get together and not have a too many cooks in the kitchen mentality, but have a really well put together solution on the services side as well as the product side to go to market. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's about giving the right people the right controls. And if I need to be able to back up things in my cluster, then if I can back up things within my cluster and I can operate within that perspective of this cluster as my environment, then it allows me as a developer to kind of break down some of those scary things, those questions like, should I put my databases inside of the environment or should I host them elsewhere? And that was a big hurdle we were able to get over, or an argument almost internally we were able to get over, because we have confidence and faith that the backup and the restore works effectively and seamlessly with Cloud Casa. So our developers are now able to have more control and autonomy within that environment to self-deploy and manage the services and things they need to support the application. So it saved us a tremendous amount of time, even in R&D cycles. And if down the road we need to take advantage of hosted or managed services for things like a database and offload to RDS and do things like that, then totally can do that. That's fine, right? But we've found ourselves in many situations where we don't have to anymore. And I think that time saved and that confidence that we get back, helps the velocity as well. So there's a lot of ROI to be achieved with a simple Cloud Casa subscription and adding that to a Kubernetes cluster.
And this might be a question for anybody, but if we look at this is Cloud Casa has kind of given companies the ability to kind of, I don't want to say create backup experts, but they've put some best practices around these technologies with SUSE Rancher Prime and Cloud Casa that you don't necessarily need that expert, because those best practices, I don't want to say come out of the box, but they're highly configurable for customers to leverage.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've really appreciated about Cloud Casa is that they have a very distinct focus, and they're very much experts in the backup space and that storage space, but they're not trying to be too big and cover all of the other storage strategies and appliances and everything else, right? That to me makes a very robust solution. Sometimes we go in and we try to engage with new vendors, and there's just so much to do and learn. It's overwhelming, when here we have a clear solution that fits a clear need. And I think that's so important, especially today with the chaos in the Kubernetes kind of application market.
And Colin, since I still have you on real quick, as a follow-up to that, with our partnership with that, has it made it easier to go to specific customers and have that conversation of saying, hey, we know your pain points. This is seamless, and this is seamless, and these two together work?
Yeah, so a big focus of ours is to put together like predefined and well-integrated stacks. These are things like collections of software and collections of tools that fit specific use cases. For us, the use cases are how a particular application or ecosystem needs to be developed for a particular use case. And we think that makes us unique as a system integrator. A lot of other integrators aren't necessarily having that technical first focus. We find a lot are just expecting the customer to bring to them a list of options for them to select based on price. We're able to be prescriptive with a solution like this because we focus on that SUSE ecosystem. The Rancher ecosystem, the Rancher apps, the Helm charts, the extensions, the more that we can get into Rancher, the less burden we have to place on our platform teams or our operations teams to figure out what that Kubernetes environment needs to look like. So for us, from a platform engineering strategy, Rancher is core and key to that. And so we try to find these different functional domains that we need to fill with a specific solution, and one that can work in many different use cases, so that we can present the customer with something prescriptive, but with a simplified bill of materials, right? We can say, this is going to be your investment in this environment. And we're able to do that with Cloud Casa and just check the box on that backup point, right? The backup and recovery side, and then move on to the next thing. So it's been really great working with them for that.
And it's as easy as just checking the said box, right? This is, hey, backup recovery, here's where we're gonna go. So
yeah,
that's
we
great.
got the tool. Yeah.
All right. Martin, question for you. Can you expand on Cloud Casa's disaster recovery capabilities as it relates to backups to SUSE storage, as well as other storage options for customers? Because we know that there's going to be environments that, it's not SUSE storage.
Exactly, yeah. So we actually had a history with orchestrating data operations and a product. We'd orchestrate the data recovery options at the storage layer, right? So our history has that, and with our latest release of Cloud Casa, we've actually taken some of that history where we've done some of that orchestration and integrated directly into Longhorn. So if you're not familiar, Longhorn is the storage that you'll likely be using if you're hosting your Rancher clusters, your Kubernetes clusters. That'll be your primary storage from which it resides. And let's say you're hosting some VMs on that storage, and you've already got your backup plan set with Longhorn, replication or backup occurring between clusters. What we can be is now that glue that ties everything together, the application and the storage layers, so that if you're already replicating the storage, that storage is not going to understand what's on it, if it's an application, if it's a database, if it's a VM, but Cloud Casa does. So Cloud Casa knows that, you backed up this Rancher cluster here at site A, you've replicated the storage over to site B, and now you want to bring it up over on site B. Well, we know what the application it is. We know how it needs to mount the persistent volume claim at site B to bring up your entire application. So you can expect that we'll integrate with other additional storage technologies as well, but that's just one of the ways in which we are taking full advantage of the capabilities that are available to Longhorn and are available to SUSE Rancher Prime.
And Colin, if he wants to jump in and correct me, but companies don't modernize applications instantly and overnight, and so having that backup and recovery of different states through different stages of modernization, where I'm kind of this monolith application's not necessarily cloud native. It's getting there. We're doing a little bit of decomposition. We're trying to get into Kubernetes, and there's times where the application is hybrid, but hybrid in the sense of it's not fully cloud native and not fully traditional. It's kind of a mixture. But at any time during that modernization, right, you might have an incident where you have to recover from that, and that gives you the ability to not lose, I don't want to say sleep, but cycles, with that recovery cycle.
100%. I'm glad you brought that up as well, because that's a big case for SUSE virtualization that we've been actively using for some time. Being a cloud native first application development organization, we're dependent on containers and Kubernetes, but at the end of the day, when you get into a migration workflow or you're doing a re-architecture, come on. I mean, it's it's reality that things need to stay in VMs. We need to match the tools of the developers of those machines until either they can reskill or the workloads can be given to another team for their responsibility and their care. But as you're reshaping that organization, the infrastructure changes and adapts and needs to move. And in a lot of these cases, you're also dependent on third-party applications that maybe run on a Windows machine or something like that. But the brilliance of that is you can modernize almost overnight with something like SUSE virtualization. And I think everyone's scared of maybe the hyper-converged mentality and what that means. But for us, what it means is that we're able to snapshot and migrate a Windows VM into SUSE virtualization, into that environment, and then use the rest of the techniques, including like the load balancing, the networking and service mesh, the storage, the backup utilities, the things that are cloud native and have already been re-architected to take advantage of the strengths of cloud native, and use those to back up the life cycle of these virtual machines that, even if they're Windows based, right, We can do file system share between containers and virtual machines as well, even on Windows and your .NET Core workloads and things like that. But if you're not ready for every single team to re-architect and modernize their infrastructure as well, then you still need backup. So if you're able to move, if your feet are able to move faster than your brain, so to speak, right, then you can migrate those workloads, get them into a hyper-converged environment, give teams access to their virtual machines so that they can still manage their applications, control networking and security with SUSE security and the SUSE virtualization with the Kubernetes networking and the VPCs and all that functionality. It's already there for you, but then we can start to modernize and pull things out and put them into microservices or APIs or put things into Helm charts and all that. But along the way, we still need our backup. We still need our restore. We still need our observability and our monitoring and all those pieces. So with Cloud Casa in there deployed into that hyper-converged infrastructure as cloud native and Kubernetes workloads where they're agnostic to the storage because it's just persistent volumes, right, inside of Kubernetes, it gives us that freedom and independence to start modernizing now as opposed to having all of our ducks in a row before we go do a modernization initiative. We're huge fans of that, but I think people are scared of it. You know, we're afraid, we're used to these big migrations and it sounds a little too good to be true, but it's there, the tools are actually there. So we definitely encourage people, if you're considering trying to get started now and moving into cloud native, you don't need to migrate your applications first. Go check out SUSE virtualization, try doing a little bit of that lift and shift, and then find Kubernetes native tools like Cloud Casa to adopt and start moving that ahead before your applications are ready.
And it sounds like a prescriptive way, you know, of this partnership really is to, you know, move workloads over, start to think about and plan, but have the confidence. If you had to roll back, you know, as, you know, developers, you and I joke about this all the time. Sometimes we don't like the direction we went or something happens and we're like, you know what, let's just take it back to that traditional workload. Let's rethink this. This wasn't working the way we, you know, anticipated. And this happens with every company, big, small. You know, I don't care how, and you could attest to this, you don't care how well your development processes are. Sometimes something just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes we don't want anybody to know that we've had to roll back is a big thing, right? So if we don't have to make a bunch of phone calls just to make that rollback happen, then that's huge for us.
And you know, I wish earlier in my career as a developer I had this, so you didn't have to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I made a mistake." You know, cloud sounds like that single pane of glass that Cloud Casa gives us. You know, as a developer, going, you know what, let's just roll it back and not say anything and change directions.
Right. We like to say that, you know, Kubernetes was grown out of a need for tools like this and this independence. It wasn't necessarily born out of we just need to have make our own cloud provider for the heck of it for our home labs, right? It's kind of a natural evolution. We're 10 years in now, so now it's a staple. But you still see a lot of developers in their own time, you know, using it at the core for their home labs and everything else as just a core piece of how they do their work now. And so, you know, why are we still trying to hang on? It's like the edge of the pool in the deep end, right? We're still trying to hang on to the wall when the tools are here and we're ready to migrate into these tools, or we're ready to pick up some of these tools like SUSE Rancher Prime with a tremendous support ecosystem and all these collections of applications and things that are already available. It's not an easy button, but it's as close to easy button as you're going to get for new infrastructure. So being able to provide that to the right teams in the right times, being able to customize their experiences, connect teams together, and be able to just in general build kind of these multi-vendor, multi-partner plays like this is amazing. And it's just, I think, reflective of the changes in IT that are happening. And it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, so I want to invite everyone back on camera and just to sort of final thoughts. We'll start with you, Ted.
Yeah, so, wow, what a great discussion. That was fantastic. I want to thank Colin and Martin for their great insights. And I think this really showcases how valuable this three-way partnership is. Everyone has a lot to bring to the table, a lot of experience. And it really revolves around three pillars. the centralized control and consistency, aided by partners like Cloud Casa, who have extended the UI and eliminating tool sprawl and just making it easier from a administration and developer perspective. The cyber resilience already built into SUSE Rancher Prime with SUSE security, observability, as well as the SFOMs with our secure software supply chain. And then future ready, the modernization of your enterprise. All of us bring something to the table for that with SUSE Rancher Prime stack, application mobility provided by Cloud Casa with comprehensive disaster recovery for both SUSE virtualization as well as Kubernetes workloads. And then even secrets. People don't really think about migrating their secrets, but that's a key capability of what Cloud Casa could do as well, Kubernetes secrets. So it helps to ensure this long-term operational peace of mind, right, and faster recovery. And then Crumware is critical to helping our customers be successful, not only by advising them with implementing strategies, which strategies should they go with, but how to best leverage the power of SUSE Rancher Prime and Cloud Casa, because they really just understand the technology.
Awesome. Martin, final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say from a VM perspective, just to harp on what Colin was saying, don't be afraid to migrate your VMs we're rethinking infrastructure, physical machines, going to virtual machines, now going to containerized VMs. It's going to change the game for you, but we're a backup company. We're building lots of great functionality to incorporate our technologies alongside with those VMs. We just released a new release of Cloud Casa that allows for single file recovery within a VM now, in addition to other technologies that we're supporting NFS-based backup target storage, Longhorn storage integration that we had already discussed. So if you're thinking about making the shift to a containerized virtualization within SUSE Virtualization Harvester, then Cloud Casa will have you covered in terms of protecting that data for you.
Awesome. Colin, final thoughts? You're on mute.
Hey, Colin, you're on mute.
You're on mute, buddy.
Oh.
Of course I'm on mute. It always happens. No, I was going to say, actually, I've already said a lot because your questions were great as well. And you know how I like to go on these, I don't know, these rants, I suppose, but really love this stuff. But I have especially appreciated Cloud Casa throughout this experience and working with us and recognizing and believing in these challenges and coming up with some good, strong solutions for them. And investing the time into developing a Rancher extension, because we feel like the next wave is really the ability for us as platform engineers and developers to provide experiences to people through these platforms. And Rancher's extensibility is core tenets for that and the experiences we develop. And so their willingness to build an extension and provide that interface rather than saying, just go out and use our UI has been really crucial for us as users and not just developers. And I think that's just a credit to their expertise and their recognition and understanding of what the customer challenges actually are.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. One of the things I love is when organizations don't have to worry that solutions don't work together and they have to question it. And I see partnerships like this coming together from integrators to data and backup storage, with what we're doing here at SUSE. They know it's a trusted solution and they know we're working together, and there's no competing, there's no nothing. We're on the phone working together. We don't have any questions. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Jamie.
Thank you. Yep, I'm going to share a few additional resources. We have our first QR code is to sign up for a free Cloud Casa plan. The middle QR code, it will direct you to some additional resources. if you'd like some more information on the information that was shared today. And then the last one is a QR code that will take you to a personalized demo form, and someone from Cloud Casa will contact you to set that up. If you don't lose these links, don't worry. We will be sending them out in the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow with the recording. So I'll leave this up. Awesome. Doesn't look like we have any other questions that have come in. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of our presenters for the awesome information that you all shared today. And with that, I think we'll be ending our presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.